Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the American Sci-Fi Classics track at DragonCon Goes Virtual. If you have been looking for the best part of your day, here you are. And thank you again for coming to all of our panels, but never mind all those. Let's talk about the one we're about to do. This is a panel about the Twilight Zone. And what we're going to do, is we have done a very scientific survey of the learned individuals who populate the classic sci-fi clubhouse, and we have found the top 8 Twilight Zone episodes, original series,
by fan vote.
Yeah. And we're gonna by fan vote, and we are gonna. You guys are gonna be our judges, and we're gonna construct the tournament's already constructed. We are going to construct a tournament bracket of these 8 episodes, and then you guys we'll talk about each episode, and we'll whittle down to hopefully what we've decided, and we'll go on record as saying it is the best episode of the original Twilight Zone. And if this works out, which it will, like all of our plans, Gary, everything we do works out. And Gary's frozen. That's perfect. That's the reaction I wanted.
We can all just enjoy that beautiful smile. Oh, he's moving again. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, darn.
And so let's go around the internets and introduce all of our panelists. And starting with one internet to my left, there's Darren Bush.
Hello, Joe. Thank you for having me again on another one of your wonderfully well-orchestrated panels. My name is Darren Bush. I am a science fiction and fantasy author. I do a lot of short stories. My short stories are available on the Kindle on my Amazon store. I also do a lot of panels and create a lot of content for Atlanta science fiction and fantasy conventions.
And 2 internets away from me is who I believe to be Rod Serling himself, Kevin Eldridge.
This is, I think, technically my second cosplay at DragonCon ever, and both times have been for this track. This one was pretty easy, and it's I switched out the cigarette for iced coffee, so we're kind of switching it up. This is the modern Rod Serling, if you will. The caffeine addict Rod Serling instead of the nicotine, you know. I'm Kevin. I'm a podcaster. My show is called The Flopcast. It's part of the ESO network. It's a super silly, super geeky show. We tend to keep things really light and silly on the Flopcast, probably lighter and sillier than the Twilight Zone, usually, although Twilight Zone had its silly moments also, and I'm a lifelong fan of this series, so great to be here.
And let's see, blah, blah, blah. Yes, one internet down from Kevin. Sue, how are you?
I am great. My name is Sue. I am a blogger and podcaster on Women at Warp. We are a feminist Star Trek podcast on the Roddenberry Podcast Network. And my primary area of interest, I guess you could say, is fan culture and fan history, and also the socio-political messaging of science fiction, which I would say Twilight Zone is a big part of. So let's get into it. I'm excited.
And one internet down from her is one of our Michaels, one of our mini Michaels on the American Sci-Fi Classics track. Please introduce yourself, sir.
I am from the Legion of Michaels. I'm Michael Williams. I write science fiction, urban fantasy, and horror. You can find me at www.michaelgwilliamsbooks.com, and you can find our podcast, Arcane Carolinas, either at arcanecarolinas.com or here on the Classic Track at 4 o'clock Eastern.
And one internet beyond, coming back closer around to me, is the American Sci-Fi Classics track co-director, Mr. Gary Mitchel.
Greetings, everyone. As you can see, I'm kind of in the Twilight Zone. the bright white void. I am, as Joe said, the co-director of the American Sci-Fi Classics track. You can find me on the Twitters here and at revolutionsf.com, where I write a weekly article called Slip Discs about what new physical geeky media is coming out for you to purchase, because I still believe in physical media. And I've been watching Twilight Zone since before I could walk, so I'm ready.
Okay, I got nothing. Now, next.
That's your new motto, Joe. You got nothing.
I got nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, and lastly, but not leastly, certainly, is our next competitor, James Palmer. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, gentlemen and lady? How's everybody doing?
Good. We're good.
And Gary.
And Gary.
And Gary.
Yeah, I'm James Palmer. I write science fiction and pulp adventure. You can find all my stuff at jamespalmerbooks.net. And I'm a big Twilight Zone fan. I'm ready to get into this. Let's do this.
So here's what we're doing. I'll go through it. Here's what we're doing. We talked to the learned individuals upon the American Sci-Fi Classics Track Facebook page and got, by their votes, the top 8 episodes of the original Twilight Zone. I have put them in a very scientific bracket format, and then we will discuss the merits and demerits of each one, and then proceed through a bracket until we get to what our consensus decision is of the final and the best episode of the original Twilight Zone. And here is bracket number 1. It is let's see. Okay.
We have not seen these before this moment.
Nope.
Yeah, no one has seen these.
Although
Including
you
Joe.
have to start with Craig Isley's comment there, because that's brilliant.
Yes, Craig Isley. Here is a comment from him. He says, consider, if you will, a network of nerds able to meet in a virtual world without actually being together. A strange future fantasy or a new reality in the Twilight Zone. Thank you. And let's see, the bracket number 1 is, and the reason no one else has seen it, Ask Me When I Finished.
Just now.
Just now, everybody. Who's the winner? That's right. We knew this panel was coming how many weeks ago, and when did I finish it? Just now.
Continuing the classic track Sci-Fighters tradition.
Yes. Here she goes. The first competition is between the Obsolete Man and Eye of the Beholder.
Oh.
How is that even a competition?
Well, the Obsolete Man is a strong episode. I mean, yeah, Eye of the Beholder is iconic, and it's one of the episodes that everybody, as soon as you think of Twilight Zone, is one that comes up.
Mhm.
But Obsolete Man is Sterling doing what he does best, making a point and beating you over the head with it.
So, Obsolete Man, Defenders, not the episode Defenders, but no Defenders. Well, tell us about the Obsolete Man, Gary. What happened to the Obsolete Man?
It's basically the fascism going on, and it's Burgess Meredith, if I'm not mistaken, is a guy who is obsolete. He has a profession where he does not have any use in society, so they're going to execute him. And the whole episode is a play, basically, between him and the guy who's working for the government, saying, well, you have to choose how you're going to die. You have to defend yourself and all this. And he manages to, in Sterling's way, Burgess Meredith is able to turn it on the guy and point out that no one is obsolete. And if I'm obsolete, then you're obsolete. And we're all obsolete. But it's a wonderful meditation on, what, is your value as a human determined by society or by you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, what we've got going on in this bracket, I think, is the one is the concept of your worth to other people based on what you do, and the other is by how you look.
Well, I don't think that in Eye of the Beholder, Eye of the Beholder, it can be viewed as like your worth to other people based on how you look, but I think a lot of it is like our worth to ourselves based on our appearance. It's like an inversion of both of those things. In The Obsolete Man, the idea is that people who disagree don't have any place in society. And there is a way in which The Eye of the Beholder is about how, by virtue of looking different, she is incapable of valuing herself.
It's
I
conceptually.
don't like The Obsolete Man because go ahead.
I was going to say she's heartbroken that the surgeries aren't taking.
Yeah.
Right.
There's The Obsolete Man I'm not a fan of. It's well performed and it's beautifully written and et cetera, et cetera. And ultimately it boils down to, wouldn't it be a horrifying world if people didn't have religion? And I'm not such a fan of that message personally. That did not speak to me as a child. As a child, I was like, no, I want to get out there in the rest of the world that wants to get rid of this guy. But I understand the point they're trying to make. Whereas, like, the Eye of the Beholder, when I was a kid, that like really dramatically affected me and made me think, oh, wow, this gets like the idea of what it's like to know inside that we are different, and I kind of wish that we weren't at that point in my life, and also to realize that there may be no like solution to that, and that the only solution may be to just like find a place where we can be ourselves and be accepted. And so like that ended up being a theme that I looked for in my own life in big ways that like really spoke to me, and I love. That's probably my favorite episode. I like made a list of my favorites, and Eye of the Beholder was number one.
Yeah, Eye of the Beholder will leap to the top of lists like this, or right up near the top, because, as Gary said, it's so iconic. It's one of the top episodes that people tend to think of, and it has that shock value, the reveal, and that's just burned in your brain once you see that. And you can buy action figure dolls of the pig-faced medical staff. That's how ingrained in our culture this one is. Obsolete Man, it's dark, it's conceptual, and going into religion themes and stuff, and it's an example of how deep this show could go, and how it often did. But I love what I'm hearing from Michael about Eye of the Beholder. Like, on the surface, when I first started thinking, I was like, well, Obsolete Man is a much deeper think piece of an episode. But now I'm thinking, no, maybe it wasn't, because Eye of the Beholder, there's a lot of meat on that bone also, conceptually.
Yeah, as the defender of Obsolete Man, it's mainly for Burgess and Romney's conflict between the two. It's a beautiful one-act, one-room play in a way, but I do have to give it up. I just didn't want it to go undefended.
And Burgess Meredith, I love, obviously, in everything he's ever done. And this isn't even the Twilight Zone episode that you think of when you think of Burgess Meredith.
Right. That is correct. A couple of comments about Eye of the Beholder. Hide the eyes of your children. There's that one. I like that one. Very, very true. I like this one as well. In the voting on the Facebook group, I'll reveal how many votes they got, but they were not in competition with each other in the voting. But Obsolete Man got 18 votes.
Wow.
Eye of the Beholder got 19. So
wow,
close, very close.
That's tight.
And Obsolete Man.
Obsolete Man. The panel to vote.
Yeah, that's right. Obsolete Man versus Eye of the Beholder. What do you guys think, Darin?
Eye of the Beholder.
Kevin?
Gotta go Eye of the Beholder.
Sue?
Make it 3.
We're almost there. Michael?
Eye of the Beholder.
There you go. All right. Well, Eye of the Beholder progresses to the next round.
Yeah. James and I's vote don't even matter.
Well, what would have been your vote?
Even though I defended it, I would still give Eye of the Beholder.
And James.
Obsolete Man, just because Burgess Meredith is in it.
True.
That's
true,
a valid reason. That's fine.
That is valid.
Totally.
Yeah.
And speaking of Burgess Meredith, here is our next bracket, and that is To Serve Man against Time Enough at Last.
Oh no, you did not.
Wow.
You did not put those two against each other so early.
This is the one versus. This is the number 1 seed versus the number 16 seed in sport terminology.
Not in my brain. It wasn't. Not in my brain. These are my top. These are 2 of my top 3 easily.
Yeah, we're only doing 8 episodes, so they're all going to be great. So even the opening rounds, it's always going to be a tough choice.
No, Kevin, you've got a good point, and not just because of the cosplay of Rod Serling. These 2 episodes. There you go. These 2 episodes are both sharp left turns at the very end, which is one of the things that Twilight Zone did best. It's one of the reasons why I love Twilight Zone so much, is because you don't get to the end and you go, oh, they resolved it. You get to the end and you go, what was that?
Yeah, like
both of these. Like, what? He breaks his glasses and then the credits? What? And then To Serve Man To Serve Man has made such an impact on the culture that you can talk about that in movies like Madagascar, the animated Ben Stiller machine. They made a To Serve Man joke in that movie, and we got the joke even though most people didn't know where it came from.
Right.
Yeah, that's been parodied on Simpsons also. That they had the book where they kept revealing more and more.
A terrific episode of The Simpsons parodies To Serve Man, and that's one of my favorites.
I think it's interesting because we've got another. The way I see it, I think we've got another societal versus personal episode set up here, right? Because To Serve Man is about, just the society believing what they're being told and going along with it. And Time Enough at Last is, I think, a very personal story. I mean, this guy's a jerk, right? To everybody. And he treats people poorly because all he wants to do is read. And, I think a lot of us nerds identify with that. I certainly do. Leave me alone. Let me read. But
literally my notes for Time Enough at Last read, who among us has not wished that literally everyone else in the world would die so that we can finally catch up on our reading? I don't think that he's a jerk. I think he's the hero of the story. If I had to choose between them, it would be tough. But I think that my favorite thing personally, and my husband and I were talking about this like moments before the panel started, my favorite thing about Time Enough at Last is what an unrelenting prosecution of straight culture it is. Because it is like nonstop. Everything about this guy, he is like so... Everything about his life is he's completely henpecked by his boss, by his wife, but like all the melodrama of her like ripping pages out of his book and things like that. And everybody, a certain segment of the population watching that and saying, I identify strongly with that character for those reasons. And I'm just like, get a better life, people. Gee. Oh my God.
I think he's a bit of a misanthrope, though. I don't think he's a person you want to be around, and whether that's fair, because of his personality or the circumstance that he's in, it's sort of a karmic story at the end.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think that if he hung out in the classics track room, I think we would find that he's very entertaining because he knows a lot of stuff about literature, and he, I mean, if he was given the chance to read prolifically, he would know a lot of deep stuff about all of this literature, and like, wouldn't he know early science fiction and Shelley and stuff like that? So I think we're getting such a small snapshot of his life. I think that this is an excellent episode where you insert your own personality into the story.
Yeah,
it leaves it open for you to do that.
He'd be a good panelist, but he would hate to be there.
Yeah. But maybe so. And he might not be somebody that we want to be around in the circumstance in which we first meet him, when he is frustrated and stunted, by having all these forces against him. But I think in a culture in which he was allowed to thrive, he would be a fantastic friend.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think his prescription was so unique that he could not just kind of start wandering around and maybe find a new pair of glasses?
I think the implication is that it's intensely strong.
Yeah.
And those are pretty
They
rare.
were thick glasses. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we had, compressed glass lenses or whatever it's actually called.
Yeah. And the last time Richard Keel was at Dragon Con about 6 years ago, I think it was. I went to get an autograph from him, and he had the Kisenwether, and and that's the one I asked for. And he takes the picture, he puts the pen to it, and then he looks up to me and goes, by the way, it's not yeah, I know. He's like, okay, I didn't want to spoil it. It's like, that is a lovely sentiment. The show is 40 years old, but I appreciate that you took that moment.
What a job they did on that character, though. The makeup, the alien head that they put on Richard Keel really holds up. You look at it today, it looks fantastic. It works. When you think of how primitive makeup and prosthetics were in the 50s and 60s, and you're taking such a distinctive looking actor to say the least to begin with, and then amping it up like that, and that worked so well.
Yeah. And like Sue was saying, it's definitely another society versus society, looking at it from the two angles, where it's, there was a very big, the Red Menace fear at the time, which is exactly what this was. And To Serve Man, it's like, hey, we've got all this stuff. We're giving you all this free stuff. We're going to make your life better so that we can eat you.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in To Serve Man. As a kid, I was fascinated and loved it, and think it's exceptionally well constructed. And the point of that episode ultimately is, don't believe anybody who tells you that we could have it better. And I'm just kind of like, oh, well, that's not exactly the moral I'm looking for as an adult.
Yeah, and I've got a special place in my heart for any show that'll break the fourth wall so blatantly and so strangely.
So here is I like this. Why would Burgess have married that way? Okay, so let's do this. I think it's time to. Well, first of all, amongst the voters on the classics track, more people voted for Time Enough at Last, and it wasn't even close. It was 22 votes for Time Enough at Last to 8 for To Serve Man. So,
right.
And so let's start with James this time. Time Enough at Last or To Serve Man?
Time Enough at Last. It's my favorite Twilight Zone episode of all time. So I gotta vote for that one.
Gary.
I've got to go for To Serve Man, especially because it's a pun.
Okay, Michael.
It's like Time Enough at Last, I guess.
Okay. Sue.
New York abstains courteously.
Wow. All right.
Kevin.
I'm gonna go To Serve Man. I mean, these are two classics. We all love them both, and man, I hate voting twice in a row against Mr. Meredith, but I'm going To Serve Man.
You're going to serve man?
I'm gonna serve man on a platter.
Darren.
To Serve Man.
Wow. So To Serve Man wins.
Yay.
Wow.
So out in round one is one of everyone's favorite episodes.
We're going against the will of the people.
That's right.
Major upset.
And I think what happened, what we're really saying here is everyone hates the penguin.
Like 3 of my favorite episodes are Burgess Meredith episodes.
Oh,
so
yeah.
We could do a Burgess Meredith panel. I think we should.
I think we
That's a
should.
good idea.
All
Let's
right.
do
So
that.
again, the best ideas happen for the next year in the previous year.
That's
Write it
how
down,
we'll make it
Joe.
up. We'll make it up to him by giving him his own panel.
A whole hour for a man who died 20 years ago, but that's okay.
Sure. Why not?
He's immortal. He's Mickey. He'll cut the best cut man in the business. The next bracket is Invaders.
Ooh, good one.
Going up against 6 characters in search of an exit.
Oh,
wow!
this is no contest for me. You can count my vote right now. 6 characters in search of an exit. Oh, what brilliant! It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So did Rod Serling invent the escape room genre?
I can tell you, as a kid, I can still vividly remember watching that episode for the first time and just being glued to the TV trying to figure out what the hell was going on and getting to that ending. And it was like one of the first times I sat there for like 20 minutes after the episode just trying to process it. This poor little, like, I must have been like 10 or 11 and just like my brain was blue screening.
I mean, I'm not going to discount the Invaders here because it's also like it's a standout episode in a lot of ways, like almost a complete lack of dialogue, basically a solo performance. But I mean, 6 characters in search of an exit it might be my top.
By the way, do we have the number wrong? Because I'm
it's
on my list with 5 characters.
5. Oh my gosh! Wow, and I've said it like a bunch of times.
Well, you see,
too.
we're the 6th character.
Oh, that's deep, man.
Meta.
It's that fourth wall again.
Wait, did I get the name of the thing wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yay me!
All right. So to get back on track here, The Invaders is absolutely one of my favorite all-time short stories in visual form ever of any kind, not just Twilight Zone, because as a child, this was formative to me understanding that it's a matter of perspective, right? Just like Eye of the Beholder. This is a great transition piece from Eye of the Beholder because you go through this whole thing where you're totally sucked in to assuming that this is a human being. And you get to the end and you go, oh, we're the bad guys, or not necessarily the bad guys, depends on how you read it. We are the UFOs. We're the problem. We're the crisis creators, if you will. And as a child, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. It depends on your point of view.
We got one question from the comments. Quickly, the plots of these episodes.
Sue, what's the plot on 5 characters?
5 characters. Spoilers is these characters all wake up in like a roundish room, and they're trying to figure out why they're there and how to get out. And the twist, I'm just jumping right to the end, is that when basically the scene pulls away at the end of the episode, we see that they're dolls being collected. And the loud clanging they heard was someone ringing a bell to ask for donations. And
because they were Salvation Army donation toys.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they're donation toys. And one of the very last shots is the ballet dancer doll. Like the doll reaches out to try and hold hands with the military doll, and the doll's eyes fill with tears, and it's just, it's basically it's creepy Toy Story. Before Toy Story.
Oh yeah,
creepier.
The toys have less agency in the Twilight Zone.
And Invaders. Yeah.
Okay, so The Invaders is basically a one-woman, one-act little play where this woman. I don't remember a lot of details about her personally, but she is basically trying to live her life in her little cabin, and a UFO lands, and she interacts with the creepy little creatures on the UFO, and they threaten her, and she threatens them. There's a conflict, and then at the very, very end, when the camera changes angle on the UFO, you see the American flag on the little UFO that's harassing the woman.
It says like USAF or something on it. Yeah.
It's United States Air Force thing of some kind. And and one thing I want to quickly add, something to what Sue was saying earlier, is Twilight Zone's one of those shows where even if you know the ending, it's still a powerful performance. It's worth watching these episodes more than once, even if you know the twist ending. It doesn't ruin it to know how the pig faces are going to show up.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because these are so many of these episodes you would think on paper rely on a surprise, on a shock, a twist of some sort. But yeah, you're absolutely right there. We know these twists. We know what's coming, but they were so beautifully made. You know, the stories, the direction, the acting, the music, everything worked together to make these little classics that you can keep on watching.
Yeah.
So I think we're ready to vote, and the vote tallies from the classic track people. 5 characters got 1 more vote
Ooh,
than
another close
Invaders
one.
did. So, Invaders, Darin.
Invaders.
Oh, no,
yeah.
I said that. yeah, just vote for Invaders, Darin.
Little
No,
Jedi
Joe,
mind trick action there, Joe.
No, Joe, your psychic powers are intact. Invaders, straight up Invaders.
It worked.
Okay. Kevin.
This is a tough one for me, but I think it only because I feel like there were other episodes sort of similar to Invaders as far as perspective and twists in that way. Where, and again, I love them both. I love the Invaders. 5 characters, I feel, kind of stands out as its own thing. The visual of it was so unusual, even for the Twilight Zone, that I'm going to go 5 characters.
Okay, Sue.
5 characters.
Okay. Her vote was all. I should have. And Michael.
Because it is the most explicitly horror story of the 2, I'm going 5 characters. Also because without 5 characters, we never would have gotten things like the Cube franchise or Cabin in the Woods.
And Gary.
Yeah, 5 characters. I will still remember when the guy finally gets out and falls, and we get the reveal, and I was just like.
And James, your vote doesn't matter, but.
Of course not. Invaders. The pressure's on.
Okay. Now, this is a Twilight Zone episode and not the superhero team of Captain America and the Submariner and the Human Torch, James. You are aware of that. Okay.
Yes.
I like to mention the Submariner as much as possible. All right. So the winner is 5 characters in search of an exit. And now the final bracket in our bracketology in the first round is It's a Good Life.
Yes.
Versus Monsters Are Due at Maple Street.
Oh man.
Let's start with James. What do you think?
Well, let's do the plot breakdowns first.
Plot breakdowns very quickly. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
James?
Yeah, James. What's It's a Good Life about?
I can't remember. Somebody will have to refresh my memory on that one.
It's a good life.
I can tell you.
Yeah. It's a Good Life. This was the one with Billy Mooney. This is young pre-Lost in Space Will Robinson, Bill Mooney, and he's a kid who has the power to whatever he wants to wish comes true. And he's a monster. So his family is just living in terror because what's this little boy going to do?
I can remember the name of that episode. That's what was
that happened. Yeah.
Sure.
And the Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. Michael.
Yeah. What's that?
That's about a neighborhood, a little suburban neighborhood. They suffer a power outage. None of their cars will work. Well, they're all outside. They see like a comet or a meteor go overhead. Then the kid says, well, what if it was aliens? Because I read a story about aliens coming and invading. And then their power goes out. They start to panic. They all sort of convince each other that the kid is right and that this is an alien invasion and that one of them is probably the alien spy to like set it all up. And then everything goes to hell.
And all right. So Monsters Are Due at Maple Street. Let's talk about that first.
Well, somebody mentioned just a few minutes ago about Cabin in the Woods. I personally think Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is a more direct inspiration of Cabin in the Woods, because one of the weird things about this episode, very good. That's right, Justin. Very good. One of the things that's so interesting about Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is that the twist at the end is that the paranoia was not paranoia. It was completely justified fear. So at the end, there's that little headache behind your eyes where you go, wait. they were being manipulated.
Yep.
And it was something alien going on. So it's like it's almost a statement on what really is paranoia, which is why I love this episode so much.
Yeah, I mean, as much as To Serve Man is about don't trust communism, the Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is don't trust the Red Scare either, because that's the whole point. Is the aliens at the end going, we don't have to do anything; they'll destroy themselves. All you got to do is push them. So it's very much against the whole group think. Don't let yourself be goaded by the crowd.
And it's such a good character study too. It reminds me a lot of some Stephen King type stuff, where you throw a bunch of people in a blender and see how they'll react, and how they all react in such different ways. Very interesting, and it's very interesting to watch over and over again. You see it multiple times and get something new out of it each time.
Yeah, in many ways, this one is sort of a distillation of a lot of very common themes that you could, if you want to take a step back and take a broad look at the Twilight Zone as a series. A lot of that this is an example of a lot of what you would, if you tried to summarize Twilight Zone. This was the 1950s, post-war, suburbia, Cold War. I feel like I'm about to break into We Didn't Start the Fire, but that was there are episodes that really feel timeless, and there are episodes that really put you in the 50s and of that time, while still being timeless. They're also of that era, and a lot of Twilight Zone episodes are you feel that isolation and that sense of I'm lost in the crowd, I'm scared. What's happening to our country, and that was a lot of what people were going through in the 50s. And in that way, this is one of the real standout episodes.
They're also both episodes that don't take the Twilight Zone like twist ending out at the end. Like neither of them has a resolution. They're both just like sort of still in an awful circumstance.
Yeah. I mean, as Darren mentioned, there is the kind of reveal on the end of Monsters on Maple Street that the paranoia is essentially justified. So there is the surprise reveal on the end. Switching over to It's a Good Life, though. What's interesting about that one is, there's no resolution. There's no, are they going to find a way to fix this kid or stop this kid? And at the end, it's just, nope. And Rod Serling comes up to say, well, we just wanted to show you, here's a little scenario that would be horrifying. Good night, America.
These people are screwed. See ya.
Good night, everybody. At the same time, it works as a political allegory. It worked then as a political allegory, and it sure as hell works now as a political allegory, where it's a time period then and now where we're like trapped sometimes by the most ridiculous whims of the least mature minds, and the fact that they can at any time send anybody to the cornfield,
Yeah, and it's still kind of horrifying when he turns that one guy into the Jack-in-the-Box, and I mean, it's a cheap effect, but it's still like...
It's exceptional horror, and it's unbelievable that it played on television at the time that it played. It's hard to watch now. It's hard to watch 60 years later. And it got an exceptionally good remake in the Twilight Zone movie.
I was gonna. Oh, okay. I thought you were going with the sequel episode with adult Bill Mumy in the one of the new Twilight Zones. But that's
and that was
actually really good.
Yeah, and we should point out that was the kid in that one. That was his daughter, and it was his real life daughter who looked exactly the way he did at that age back in the 60s. And they brought Cloris Leachman back, who was the mother in the original.
Fave.
But we can there's a ton of other panels that we can do about the Twilight Zone. But as far as just this episode, It's a Good Life is kind of, if I could step off the fence for a second, it's kind of my favorite. I think it's my favorite. It's a Good Life because it kind of sums up all the Twilight Zone to me. But yeah, this is a tough one.
So what was the voting?
The voting, if you're ready for this, the voting was a tie.
Wow.
I can see that.
Had the exact same amount of votes. So let's see, where did we started one, boop, boop. So now we're back to, if you guys are ready to vote, we can do it.
Let's do it. We got to move.
Yeah. Oh, me and Gary run the thing. We got plenty of time.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, that's right.
Going all night.
Going all
Gee,
night.
where was that time last panel?
We went way over. Anyway, we're gonna focus. Thank you, Darin. All right, It's a Good Life or Monsters Are Due at Maple Street. Darin.
I have a homeowners association, so I'm going to go with Monsters Are Due on Maple Street.
Darren doesn't have to watch this; he's living it.
Yeah, 100%. Kevin.
Again, every one of these has been tough, but I have to go. It's a Good Life.
Okay, Sue.
I think I'm also going to go It's a Good Life.
Okay, Michael.
I'm going Monsters because the point of Monsters is we're all monsters.
Okay, that is a tie. Gary.
This is tough because I have a picture from DragonCon of Bill Mummy giving me "I'm sending you to the cornfield" look.
Cool.
But Monsters just for the political and allegory alone.
Gary, James, the last time I said your vote doesn't count. This time, it's the only one that counts.
Oh wow, the pressure. Well, I'm afraid Bill Mooney will send me to the field, so I'm going to say it's a Good Life.
It's a tie.
So, Joe, you're our tiebreaker?
It's 3-3. So, Joe, yeah.
I'm going to say It's a Good Life.
It's impossible to choose.
I mean, this one.
Sure.
This is.
Yeah, these are tough. These are great.
Everyone else who voted on the thing, it was also a tie with them too. So so It's a Good Life. So now here we are in round two.
Final four.
Round two. Eye of the Beholder against To Serve Man.
Oh man.
Oh.
You thought round one was tough.
Yeah. So thoughts. Let's see. Besides, I can't choose.
I could vote right now. I mean, I'm basically Sue, but in this round, it's Eye of the Beholder for me every time. There's just no comparison.
Yeah.
I'm going with Michael. I think again, both classics, both iconic classic top 10 Twilight Zone episodes. But if we have to pick, and I want to see. I always go back to those freaky pig surgeons. Got to go Eye of the Beholder.
One of the real powers of it is that it's pretty much a straightforward medical drama, except for this one weird science fiction idea, and it's beautifully constructed.
Yeah,
and it's also a story about finding your people, because at the end, when she goes to live with the other people that look like her, it's like finally she has a place where she belongs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I've got Eye of the Beholder as well, just because it's a better character set.
I think that looking at this in terms of our cultural zeitgeist, if you will, I think more people recognize the pig doctors. So I think that it has made the larger cultural impact. So I am going to go Eye of the Beholder as well.
Okay, so Darin?
I have to say, and I am trigger warning. I'm going to go very dark here. Both of these episodes deeply disturbed a Jew in me for reasons. I think that there's elements of the World War II struggle in both of these stories, but I have got to vote To Serve Man. It's my favorite. So.
James?
Yeah.
This is a tough one. Both of these are iconic classics. Both of these kind of rely on a twist sort of ending. I think I'm gonna have to go with the pig doctors this round.
And they can't really call it that because that would spoil the ending.
That was also my punk band in college. We should say
Pig doctors.
We were awful.
Elly Mae Clampett at the end. They can't call it that.
Now that I've officially lost that vote, I want to say that Eye of the Beholder does such a beautiful job with the cinematography of kind of hinting at the faces but not showing you the faces. It is beautifully shot. It really is.
Yeah.
So what was the final vote?
I lost.
Eye of the Beholder.
Yeah.
Eye of the Beholder wins.
Yes.
In a landslide.
Okay. And now to pick the Eye of the Beholder's competition, 5 characters in search of an exit versus It's a Good Life.
So different.
I think the guy from It's a Good Life, maybe he turned humans into the 5 characters. That would be something he would do.
He did. We did see him turn a guy into a toy.
That'd be a 90s episode of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. I'm gonna come right out and say It's a Good Life. I don't see how 5 characters can stand up to that one. Again, love them both classics. It's a Good Life. I would keep coming back to as just one of the very outstanding episodes, even above and beyond 5 characters.
I'm going to take the opposite tack.
Yeah.
I think that for me anyway, the explicit horror aspects of It's a Good Life are less impactful for me than the like psychological drama of 5 characters. And so I'm going with 5 characters.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that It's a Good Life. It's kind of just hammering this one horrifying concept, whereas 5 characters, there's a lot more going on.
Yeah.
So that's a valid point.
I think I have to go with It's a Good Life, partly because as soon as I voted for Monsters last time, I wished I had voted different. And it's because It's a Good Life just really sticks with you. The fact that it terrified me as a 5-year-old or 7-year-old or whatever I was, and the fact that it terrifies me now, and the fact that when watching the 80s movie, when I realized that there was a remake of It's a Good Life, I immediately started to panic. I think that I have to go with that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're both great horror stories. One is a visceral, the other one is existential, and I've got to give it the 5 or 5. British friends, I'm not turning my hand.
I think Gary's like flashing gang symbols or something.
What up? Yeah. And James.
It's a tough one. I think I'm going to have to stick with It's a Good Life.
Were you paying attention, Joe?
Darren, what was your vote?
I did not vote, and I'm not going to. I'm going to abstain from this one.
Oh,
that's a power move.
Challenge.
Physical challenge. Well, then, Good Life still wins. That's 3-2.
All right.
So now,
I'm upset by this.
In the finals, Eye of the Beholder versus It's a Good Life.
Honestly, this is kind of what I was thinking it would come down to, because these are 2 of the most iconic episodes of the show.
That is a killer final round.
Yeah.
I immediately started looking around for do I have any of my D&D dice in here? Because I'm just like,
yeah,
I can't be expected to make a conscious choice between them.
Yeah, you could flip a coin on this one.
See, this is the point in the panel when everything goes black and white and the camera pans over to Rod going, what?
Yeah. I planned this. It's all me, buddy.
Well, this is one where there's no loser, because both of these are so great.
Except
both of these stand on their own.
In the town, in the Good Life, those people are all.
Those people are they're screwed.
Is this the point where we find out that we just have to keep doing this panel forever? Is that the twist?
Yeah.
Like when Jack Klugman has to keep playing pool forever? Is it that kind of thing?
All right. I love Kelly's comment she just threw up.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah.
Eye of the Beholder.
Yeah.
I like that.
If I were voting based on which one would I want to watch right now, if somebody said we're going to watch one episode of Twilight Zone, it's going to be one of these two, I would go with Eye of the Beholder, partly for the reliving the experience of seeing it as a kid, and partly because it's the episode where it's possible to have an escape from a society that is awful and will probably kill you eventually. And that's something that was important to me then, and it's important to me now.
So
Yeah.
I have a proposal for the panel, and that is that I think before we vote, we should read the closing narrations of each episode.
Ooh,
Yes.
That's a fantastic idea.
I love it.
Oh.
I just put one in our private chat, and I'm going to go get the other one.
Are those
All right.
available?
I want
Oh,
dibs
okay.
on Good
Let's
Luck.
see.
Well,
All
that's
right.
the one that's there, Gary, so hit it.
All right. No comment here. No comment at all. We only wanted to introduce you to one of our very special citizens, little Anthony Fremont, age 6, who lives in a village called Peaksville, in a place that used to be Ohio. And if by some strange chance you should run across him, you had best think only good thoughts. Anything less than that is handled at your own risk. Because if you do meet Anthony, you can be sure of one thing. You have entered the Twilight Zone.
That's awesome. I'd like to nominate Michael to read the Eye of the Beholder one.
Okay. Gosh.
Well, if it's too much pressure.
Oh, no,
I got
that's
chills
fine.
from that, by the way, Gary.
Well,
Yeah. No, I got
Before-
real actual goose flesh.
before we read the next one, I just want to say, your reading of that and thinking about how that relates to right now, it got me thinking about toxic positivity, right? You can only think good thoughts. You're not allowed to dissent.
This is fine.
This is fine. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael.
Now the questions that come to mind. Where is this place? And when is it? What kind of world where ugliness is the norm and beauty the deviation from that norm? You want an answer? The answer is, it doesn't make any difference. Because the old saying happens to be true. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. In this year or 100 years hence. On this planet or wherever there is human life. Perhaps out amongst the stars, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Lesson to be learned.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay, so now we vote. Let's see. In the beholder in the where is it? Okay. Here we go. In the original bracketing of the individual episodes, Eye of the Beholder got more votes than It's a Good Life. But that was before any of this. So now, James.
I'm gonna have to flip the script, I think, and vote for Eye of the Beholder.
Okay.
It's more of your prototypical Twilight Zone episode. It's got the twist. It's a thinker. Makes you think about the world and your place in it. It's why I watch The Zone.
Okay. Garrett.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do the same thing, especially when you think of it through the lens of trying to teach us to look at things from other perspectives and to realize that, try to examine your own biases and where they come into play. And as an iconic episode of the Twilight Zone, it's one of the ones that always comes right to the top. So I got to give it to Eye of the Beholder.
Okay. Now, Michael.
Come back to me. I'm still thinking.
I'll do this. I'll start back at the beginning of the top row. Darin.
Come on.
I forward my time to Sue.
Okay. Yeah. Right, so we're reversing the direction.
So wait, does that make me South Carolina now?
Oh Lord.
Stand up, John.
All right, I'm reclaiming my time. I was going to very quickly say before Sue gets too offended, is that Twilight Zone is about 4 different shows that all have the same format and are in the same time slot. And the actual main why Twilight Zone exists, The Eye of the Beholder is the best episode of that. So I got to vote for Eye of the Beholder here.
Now, Sue.
I mean, guys, I'm just making 1776 references. Tell me, don't get Broadway deep cuts. Anyway, I think I'm going to stick with Eye of the Beholder as well, for the same reasons I mentioned last time, for its place in our culture and its impact on the science fiction that was to come after.
Okay, Kevin.
Yeah, a lot of old TV series I learned about from my mom. My mom would show me stuff, that existed before I was born. So some of the old 50s, 60s black and white stuff, she was the one that would say, "This is great. Watch this." And this is back, you couldn't just pull up whatever episode of whatever show you wanted to see. You just had to hope that you'd catch it at some point in reruns. And Eye of the Beholder, I remember my mom describing that to me, like, "Oh, there was this one episode. Let me tell you what this one was about." And I was like, wow, I hope I get to see it someday. And I was up late at night once, and it started as, I think this is the one. Wait a minute. And even having it spoiled in advance by my mom explaining the whole thing to me, it still blows your mind when you see it.
What is Elly Clampett doing?
If you had to take an episode to show to someone, to say, here's the Twilight Zone, this is what you should watch, this is what you should take away, this is what you should learn. It's a Good Life I love it. It sticks with you. It's a classic. It's wonderful. But I'm voting Eye of the Beholder.
Well, we have a winner. 4-2, whatever Darren and Michael wanted to vote for.
Michael?
Do you guys want to? So really, what we're saying is your votes usually count in the Twilight Zone.
I really want to hear what Michael's vote was going to end up being.
Yeah.
Or is it just...
We have to make him.
Okay, so here's the thing. The episode that I would rather watch and the world that I would rather live in is Eye of the Beholder. But the reason that I don't want to watch or live in the world of It's a Good Life is because that is such an effective and powerful horror story. And so as a writer, I feel like It's a Good Life is the better episode. As a viewer, the Eye of the Beholder is the world where I feel like there is a chance that I could make it.
Yeah, in a Good Life, we ain't making it.
So it really kind of depends on which hat I'm wearing. And right now I'm not wearing my writer hat. And I hope in the real world that there are like better tomorrows ahead of us. And so I'm going to go with Eye of the Beholder.
Yep. So there you go. Darren?
Oh, Eye of the Beholder. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, it was unanimous. So none of you get sent to the cornfield. So
Sweet.
So I know we're close to end of time, but a question came in on Facebook that was for the panel, I guess for each of us. What is your favorite episode that was not among these brackets?
Yeah, there are dozens of classic episodes that we do not get to talk about in this format.
I think somebody way up in the comments gave me a good idea. Next time we do this, which won't have to be next year now, because we're online, baby. We should do the opposite of, instead of the most influential,
least.
Maybe not the least influential, but the ones that the hidden gems.
Yeah, the lost, the ones that people don't necessarily think of right away, but direct people to, like, oh, I forgot about that one.
And we'll do this with those.
I have my pick already.
Oh yeah, I've got like 4 or 5 ready to go. We could just talk for another hour.
But thank you guys. Another.
Can we answer this question?
Yeah, we can answer it. I'm sorry.
I've got mine ready to go. It's one of my all-time favorite episodes. It's A World of His Own. It's the season finale of the first season, where there's this playwright who dictates plays into his dictaphone. Whatever he dictates becomes real. He's able to completely rewrite reality. He rewrites his wife. He rewrites everything. If he doesn't like something, he throws the tape into the fireplace. It burns up, and whatever it is goes away. And the reason I love it is at the very end, we do the pan over. There's Rod going, here's the thing, talking about the guy. And all of a sudden it cuts back over to the playwright and he goes, Rod. And he picks up an envelope that says Rod Serling, throws it in the fireplace, and Rod goes, oops. And
I think my answer is probably The Midnight Sun.
That's mine too.
All right.
Okay, then I'll pick a different one.
No, it's okay. Talk.
You talk about Midnight Sun, and I'll go for it.
No, it's the one that sticks out for me because I watched a lot of Twilight Zone as a really young kid, which was probably a bad idea. But it seems like there were always marathons on, and that I have a very distinct memory of this character who wakes up and her fever dream caused the opposite of the real situation. And that just stuck with me. I had to be like 6 or 7. And it blew my mind.
It's also a really super effective little bottle episode. And it's one of the great episodes where it's basically a stage play with the camera turned on it. It's really well done. The one I'm going to choose instead then is He's Alive. Dennis Hopper is the neo-Nazi who's up and coming. And getting instructed in how to build a movement around fake outrage. And that's an episode that everyone should watch right now.
Yeah.
My favorite episode is, and when I looked it up today, I did not know this, but it was actually the last episode that was filmed. I think because of the order they aired thing is it wasn't officially the last episode that aired, but the last one they made was Come Wander With Me. And this was a rockabilly singer, kind of travels up into the mountains looking for a new song, and he's just in the middle of nowhere, backwoods. And there's a young woman that he finds up there who's singing this really haunting, mysterious song called "Come Wander With Me," and he just wants this woman's song, and finds himself being drawn into living the horror story that is played out through the lyrics of the song she's singing. And it's really just atmospheric and haunting, and that's one that I always look for during the TV marathons and whatnot. So my pick is Come Wander With Me.
Let's see, Darin and James.
James, go ahead.
I'm gonna have to go with probably. I had a couple in mind, but I'd probably Kick the Can. Kick the Can is a fun one.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the plot of that one.
Darin.
So I made a list of about a dozen of my favorite episodes, and 5 of them are on the bracket, which is nice.
Cool.
Wow.
But if I had to pick just one to comment on now, I would say A Game of Pool sticks out in my mind because you've got Jack Klugman and Jonathan Winters, 2 amazing actors, kind of trapped in this 2-man stage play. Again, it's a black box with a camera pointed at it. One of the reasons that sticks out to me is not just that it inspired some of my writing later, and inspired some of my creativity, but also, and I'm not I wasn't able to verify this yesterday, but I think that they are the ones who play the game of pool. That's really them playing. It's not stunt pool players. Jonathan Winters was a fabulous pool player. Jack Klugman was a good pool player. So there's no stunt players in that one, which is very cool to me.
Yeah, Jack Klugman did 3 episodes, I think. He did a few.
His narrative were definitely on heavy rotation.
Yeah.
Bill Mooney did 3 too, I think.
Did a couple of those.
There's that great one that was shot in Super 8 where he's talking to his dead grandmother on the toy telephone. That was a really good one.
Yeah. With Ernest, I didn't mention this earlier, but if I've got to pick a Burgess Meredith episode that's my favorite, it's Printer's Devil.
Yes. Printer's Devil is such a great episode. Oh my God.
I off the top of my head, I don't remember the title. I think mine is the one with Darren Stevens, the original nervous Darin, who can see everyone's true appearance. That as long as his coin is spinning, that's one of my favorites. because nervous Darin is the best. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hanging out with us on the first ever Twilight Zone bracket. What we've determined is at this moment, Eye of the Beholder is the best episode of the Twilight Zone. The Good Life is close, but didn't get the win. And so whenever anyone for the next little while asks you, "Hey, what's the best episode of the Twilight Zone?" you have to say Eye of the Beholder.
We determined it scientifically.
We don't
And
know the rules, except we do.
And as a corollary, you have to say your favorite cast member of the Beverly Hillbillies is Elly May. And so thank you guys very, very much. We will see you very soon.
In the Twilight Zone.
In 18 minutes.